This is my workshop in Lambeth, on Lambeth Walk, which is very near the Imperial War Museum, and it's where I do all my work. It's not a very large space, but it has everything I need, particularly these lights. For example, I can change the angle of the lighting at an instant, which really helps to see your work properly, and all the lighting is daylight, so you can see the colours properly, daylight frequencies. This is the bench I made, which is really nice solid oak, and the beauty of it is that I can adjust the height like this electrically, which means you can keep the work at the optimum place for you to work, physically, and also so you can see things properly. I generally make 2 to 3 instruments a year, which isn't very much, and that is because the process I use is very involved, namely designing the arching shapes of the front and back on the computer and transferring this information onto the wood. At the moment in time I'm making 5 instruments, which is unusual in itself, although they won't all be completed in the same year, and that is a cello, viola and 3 different model violins. The cello model is a William Forster II, 1794. The original was made very near to here in central London. It's a lovely shape model, really very curvy, lovely curved C's. And here on the back you can see I've put all the numbers representing the heights of the curves that I've designed on the computer to be transferred into the wood. So that's not really concerned with the outside shape here, or the inside once it's hollowed. It will be the line that bisects the two and making sure that is really perfect. Elisa Weilerstein plays this particular model, and she's really worth checking out. The viola model is a Conte Vitale by Andrea Guarneri. This one has got a lovely back on, actually. You can see it's almost like water. It's what we call a slab cut back. It gives a very particular type of effect. This one has had some treatment to it already. You can see the neck was fitted later and is untreated, whereas the body has seen some sun. It's not varnished, but it's had some staining and a coating just to protect it from the varnish, to stop the varnish penetrating too deeply and affecting it acoustically. So the next thing for this will be another ground coat, which contains lots of minerals that augment the refraction of the light as it goes through the varnish, and also help acoustically. The first violin I'd like to show you is a Nicola Marti. Stradivari was supposed to have been an apprentice in his workshop, so you get a rough idea of when he was around. It's a beautiful model. It's the Allard. It's very petite, quite narrow in the C's, a little bit shorter than a Strad, very curvaceous in the archings, and just a beautiful instrument. I really like it. I heard one played by the first violinist in the Lindsay Quartet and thought it sounded amazing, and yeah, I found it a really successful model. The next one I'd like to show you is a Guarneri del Gesù, 1743 model. It's the So Re. Now I'm very into the playing of Itzhak Perlman, and I love the sound he gets, and he plays a Guarneri that is this model, and it's slightly unusual. It's a very late model. It's quite high in the arch, and the Fs are quite eccentric, like in the later period of his work. And this one's had some natural varnish put on it, clear varnish, It's still got quite a bit more to go with colour and then with antiquing. And this is the Strad model I'm making. It's the swal, which is the Strad that Itzhak Perlman plays, which came from Yehudi Menwin, so that's got a lovely pedigree. It's very slightly longer than usual. Gives a really lovely even tone. Yeah, I'm very pleased with that one. It's worth checking out Itzhak Perlman's Sonaten and Partiten, where you hear both of these models being played. Just thought I would show, this is an example of antiquing. This one's been quite heavily antiqued in the sense that a lot of the colour code has been removed and you just have little bits in the corners. Antiquing varies immensely. Sometimes it can be very subtle. This one's quite extreme. Here's another extreme version where you can see where the varnish has come off on the area where it would be on your shoulder, and things like beard marks and sweat marks. But actually, usually I'd say the antique is more subtle than this normally. There are two processes that distinguish my work from other makers. The first being the fact that I design the arching on a computer rather than using templates just to describe the outside of the instrument, because the computer allows me to look at not just the outside or the inside of the arch, but the line that bisects the two, which represents the true structural shape of the arch. This diagram is one of 6 that I produce for both the front and the back of an instrument. This one is actually the Forster cello front. And this particular diagram represents the narrow point of the front. That means the narrowest point between the Cs. And you can see it's half a cross section. Once I've decided the height of this arching, I then produce a catenary curve, this blue line, to build the arching shape around. Now, catenary comes from the word catena, which is Italian for chain, and you can see the curve that a hanging chain makes, and it's believed this shape was used to help guide the hollowing of the plate. Well, ideally you want this structural line to be in the middle of the wood, not on the inside or the outside. They would have used the chain hanging to guide them for the inside. But this middle line here represents exactly the structural shape of the arch. This red line here, you can see, is the line that bisects the outside orange line and the inside brown line. And it follows the catenary as long as possible until it blends into the fluting. The second process that distinguishes my work from other makers is the fact that I use light to decide how thick to make the front and back plate, and therefore how stiff they are. Normally this is done using something like a dial caliper, which measures the thickness, and then the violin maker will flex the plates with their hands and decide if it's too stiff or not. Wood is very variable in density, so 2 parts of the same thickness might be actually quite different stiffnesses, but light shining through the plate will really show up these density variations, and if you get an even light transparency through the wood, then you're much more likely to have an even flexibility. This is a cello front that I'm working on at the moment, and it's mounted on a light panel, so when the light shines through this wood, it highlights the variation in density. And if, for example, I wanted to get a very even flexibility over the whole plate, I would try and get it and even transparency. In actual fact, there are areas that you don't want the same flexibility, and you can actually use the light to guide you to see these areas as well. Like if you want a stiffer area, it will be slightly darker. So if I drop the lights and remove some wood with this thumb plane, you can see what I mean. The beauty of this is I can see exactly what I'm doing, and it gives a very accurate representation of the flexibility. This is an old violin back that I discarded a long time ago because I overdid the thicknessing, and you can see very clearly here where the wood is thin, and especially here where it's gone too thin, it's very bright. So normally now I work using this light, but the room will be completely blackened, and I can just remove wood and see exactly how dense the remainder is by the luminosity.